As expected, Senator Sanders announced his presidential campaign today. Um, I was one of his early donors, and he was able to raise 4 million in one day. That's significant because it's the highest amount anybody has raised. It beat out Harris, who had tied his record at 1.5 million for the first time he ran. So this idea that he's not popular or that he doesn't have a lasting resonance with Americans is ridiculous. But you're going to see a lot of stupid things be said over the next year and a half, presuming that he's in the race for that time and the DNC doesn't begin their tricks earlier than that. So I wanted to kind of lead you through a couple of different scenarios, or rather some things that people have said. And I really like this example by AMO, where she says every centrist and Republican runs for president on Dem 2020 ticket. Centrist, party unity. Bernie Sanders runs for president. Centrist, he's driving the party. Putin, he's dividing the party. Putin, fascist. Skin melts away to reveal old snot cover of conservative troll. And what she's saying here is so emblematic of what I've seen over the last few hours, where there's this Never Bernie hashtag on Twitter. And I always, the people who say this stuff, they get me so caught up because I remember being told by Sanders himself, what's her name, Sarah Silverman at the DNC, and a bunch of internet users, if you don't vote for the Democrat, you're going to get stuck with Trump, and if you don't vote for him, yada, yada, yada. And never mind the fact that there's an electoral college and Hillary won my state no matter what I did, but, that's besides the point. So, they're very quick to go after and condemn voters for not voting for her. And I thought it was kind of amusing that you're going to basically, you don't like it when we express our discontent with a candidate by not voting for them, but then you're going to express your discontent for our candidate by not voting for him. Again, just the hypocrisy is palpable. But going over to the another example of what I was talking about, there are people who genuinely, when I speak to them, they act as though they can't remember the last, something that was only a few years ago. So I'm not going to show you the usernames of the people for this tweet. But this was after a person claimed, oh, Bernie was he divided everything, blah. And I said, look, here's an article from The Hill during the campaign cycle, where he repeatedly advocated for his voters to back Hillary. Let's load it up right now. See that right there? That is October 2016. And let's see here. Touted Clinton's promise. I say to Mr. Trump, most of you understand. Think about voting for Hillary Clinton on this issue alone. So, the idea that he was this person who, kind of after losing just said, no, screw her, and decided to not bother with attempting to help her campaign is ridiculous. But, when I sent this article, because I think a lot of times when you present facts, people will be less likely to, they reject this evidence. If I click on this, you're going to see a fool who will look you in the eye and say what happened did not happen. As Rudy Giuliani would say, the truth is not truth. And you're supposed to just sit there and believe it. And I've also had a habit, because I'm one of the Bernie or bust people. I've said before that the other two Democrats I'd vote for are Warren and Gabbard, because they're the least suspicious to me out of the pack, aside from Bernie himself. But I've had a thing of just going on my front page and seeing a lot of the new comments that are made by people and scanning to see if anyone has liked something that's anti-Bernie or something that's, negative against him. And I've had people who say, well, that's basically getting authoritarian on people who have a different position or perspective than you do. And I say, look, I am not into sports. I am not into, I guess, most foods, or just things that on a day-to-day basis people argue all the time. This is my thing. This is the issue with which I put great value and importance on. So when I sit here and I watch this senator give two announcement videos, one where it's just him in the room by himself, another one where it's a montage of things that happened over the last few years, and they're both policy oriented. And I see these fools who sit here and they only talk about um, Russia's involvement in his campaign and him throwing the election for Hillary and some sexual harassment liars that waited 2 years to say anything just conveniently before he wants to run again. But we're supposed to believe that's not them purposefully orchestrating that to screw him over. This is what causes me to say enough is enough. I'm not listening to you anymore. Like that person who responded, I read the first sentence. That was it, because it's all nonsense, and it's perpetrated and orchestrated by people who can see the proof in the pudding right in front of them, and because they have a hate boner for Sanders, I call it Bernie derangement syndrome. We're never going to get them to admit what exactly they have a problem with him about, or if they do, it's always tied back to something that's not policy oriented. I only ever saw, and I've made this point a couple of times, in all these Never Bernie people, I've only ever seen them talk about one person, right? One person was the only person I ever witnessed who spoke about his positions and condemned them or tried to make them seem not as good. They went down the whole list, and I thought they were dumb and that their brain probably malfunctioned. But my point is, when I watch these Never Bernie people and they flock to someone like Harris, and even this person who I think is dumb, they were smart enough to realize somebody like Harris, somebody like Gillibrand, somebody like Booker, Castro, pretty much everyone in the race other than Klobuchar are all playing the progressive angle. They're all trying to copy Bernie. She admitted that as someone who didn't like him, that Harris was attempting to copy him. So when I watch these people who don't like him then say I'm going to back these 5 or 6 other people who are, for the most part trying to take on his tone and also adopt his positions on issues that you've never seen him talk about before, other than over the last 2 years, it shows how disingenuous and ridiculous they are. They genuinely believe, I'm opposed to Sanders because wham, and then I'm in favor of this person because at least they're not Sanders. That's a dangerous mindset. I tried to explain that when you have individuals who don't stand for anything, which is exactly what those Never Bernie people, actually are, you're going to get more of the same. When you have Clinton running a campaign and she goes, "Vote for me because I'm not as bad as the other person," that doesn't win votes. That gets people to say, "Well, two crappy options. Let me not vote at all. Let me vote for something else, or let me, just." People are turned off by that, and I can't understand that you can have someone who had a record turnout during the past presidential primary have these individuals who make these weird predictions. Oh, he'll be out after the first primary. He won't even make it to South Carolina. I was like, how do you know that Harris, Kamala isn't going to make it? It is definitely going to be there for most of it. Or Biden, who's dropped out early in both of his prior campaigns. I mean, the guy who overperforms, they genuinely think has like no chance or otherwise won't be able to pull this off if the DNC doesn't have its trickery involved. When I did the video about the Twilight Zone, I was trying to say that oftentimes I will lay out a couple of facts or something that people, if they don't have some overwhelming bias, can admit to. For example, if a person who is virtually unknown can enter a race with a candidate who's been famous for 3 decades and get 13 million votes and win dozens of states, they overperformed. They did but better than what you thought they would do. And so when I watch him raise $4 million in one day, and I get told about how he's divisive. I had one person say this morning he's divisive. Well, the most popular politician in the U.S. is divisive. Who's not? If I have a 60-something% approval rating, and nobody below me in my profession has, or rather, no one in my profession has anything above that, then are any of us not divisive by that that sense of logic? But again, they turn their brains off and avoid the just any kind of rationale for what they say. It's all feelings and emotions and wham, I'm sad that this happened versus yay, I want to actually have a debate or discussion. I have idiots on there posting right now about how since he's not a Democrat, he shouldn't be able to run. So you pricks weren't saying this 4 years ago when he announced his campaign. What changed? He actually got popular and more name recognition than any of the people in that primary combined, except for Biden, who's not even in the primary yet. They will create anything. They will orchestrate anything. This is why I'm throwing my support entirely behind him. I donated this morning, the average contribution, and I am going to play a much more active role than I did last time. Because if we go down, we're not going down because they got more votes. It's over their rigged election, but also we're not going down without doing every single thing possible to ensure that these hacks and pricks, eat crap, and that our positions are put and implemented by someone who we actually can trust and believe in, not some uh, what was it, bending over senator from California who only became pro marijuana legalization after finding out it was overwhelmingly popular, or some big pharma sellout from New Jersey that wants to vote against the bill to lower prescription drug costs and then say he's for the working class, or some Obama flunky from Texas that kept his mouth shut for 2 straight years about anything having to do with free college or single payer health care, or a Green New Deal, and then wants to come out and tell you, oh yeah, I'm part of that coalition. Give me a break. But they really buy this. And again, it's not because the alternatives to Sanders are that good or that great, because they're not going to Warren, they're not going to Gabbard, they're just screwing with him. It's the same thing with Gabbard, where you see these people who are going and criticizing her for the anti-LGBT stuff. They're not going after her because they legitimately care about LGBT individuals. They're going after her because it is convenient to them to smear the other progressive in the race. That's why they didn't go after Obama for not backing until a second term. That's why they go after Hillary for not backing same-sex marriage until 6 years ago. 2 years before he went on for president. Again, this is not hard to spot, but these people are able to trick themselves, and it's just it is Bernie derangement syndrome. And the idea that you're going to take the person who overperforms in the primary, who polls higher than most other people, and say, yeah, this person is not going to win, or we shouldn't run this person. It's just the Twilight Zone. So his campaign's a great thing. The reaction to it by these people are the equivalent of the Twilight Zone, and I will be doing everything in my power to help him.